Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. Today we are continuing on with Punk's Not Dead by Wrunic. And today we are reading chapter 4. Is he seriously asleep? Kaminari asked in what was probably supposed to be a whisper. Katsuki swatted at him to prove that he wasn't, but didn't open his eyes. In his defense, he'd had a long-ass day, and it was getting close to midnight. And as far as Katsuki was concerned, these hyperactive motherfuckers were the weirdos, not him. He could feel Kirishima shaking with silent laughter and opened his eyes to glare at him. Kirishima grinned at him when he noticed and flicked Katsuki on the forehead. "All right, Sleeping Beauty, let's get you home," Kirishima said, carefully extricating himself from under Katsuki and pulling him to his feet. He had arranged it so he was supporting most of Katsuki's weight, which was probably supposed to be nice, but it was fucking patronizing.
"I can stand myself, asshole,"
Katsuki grumbled, shoving him away. He only stumbled a bit before regaining his balance, and he made sure to glare fiercely enough at the assembled idiots that no one would call him on it. "All right," Kirishima said, backing off with his hands raised. "Denki, Hanta, are you guys coming?" They both nodded and stood. Ashido gave each of them a parting hug, except Katsuki, who she punched in the shoulder. He punched her back, and they headed out. The drop in temperature once they got outside was enough to jolt Katsuki firmly back to full alertness. This was accompanied by the realization that he'd basically fallen asleep on Kirishima. And sure, that was technically allowed based on the rules they'd set out, but Katsuki hadn't spent that much time touching another person since... He didn't even remember, since he was a baby, probably. It was fucking weird. He climbed into the passenger side and plugged his phone into the aux before Kaminari got any ideas. There were 17 missed calls from his mom and 3 from Uraraka. Katsuki stared at them for a moment, then started his music and put his phone face down in the space between the seats. He could deal with that later. "Hanta lives closest, so we're dropping him off first," Kirishima said, and Katsuki grunted in acknowledgement. The detour added 5 extra minutes to Katsuki's trip home, which wasn't really that much, all things considered, but it gave him more time to think about what was waiting for him when he got home. He'd told his mom about Kirishima, kind of, and then disappeared for 4 hours. This wasn't going to be pretty. Katsuki didn't even notice when they'd pulled up at his house, and Kirishima poked him gently in the side. "Did you fall asleep on us again?"
"Fuck off,"
Katsuki snarled, and Kirishima just laughed. "See you on Monday?" If he survived until then.
"Yeah, bye."
He got a bye from both Kirishima and Kaminari, who reclaimed the aux cord before Katsuki was even fully out of the car. Katsuki had planned on waiting until they drove off before trying to get into the house, but Kirishima was apparently one of those people who waited to see that you were safely in your house before leaving, because of fucking course he was. Resigned to his fate, Katsuki headed up the front walk and opened the door as quietly as he could, hoping that by some miracle he'd be able to get up to his room without anyone realizing he'd gotten back. That hope was, of course, in vain, because his mom was sitting in the armchair that faced the door, lurking in the shadows like a goddamn cartoon supervillain. "Start talking," she said. Her voice was deathly calm, which meant that Katsuki had severely underestimated how much shit he was in.
"The food was pretty good, but the noodles were a bit undercooked,"
he answered, because he was an asshole who'd been raised by an asshole, and if she wanted answers, she was going to have to fucking take them. "You know damn well that's not what I meant, Katsuki," she snapped, standing and moving so she was standing in front of him. Katsuki made a frustrated growling noise.
"I told you exactly what I was doing, and that's what I did. I don't know what else you want from me."
"I want to know why the fuck your date to your cousin's wedding is taking you to a kaiki and bringing you home after midnight."
"I literally wasn't alone once the entire night, and Ashido's dad was in the fucking restaurant. Nothing happened, except what I told you was going to happen,"
Katsuki exclaimed. "Ashido?" his mom said, conveniently ignoring everything else he'd said, immediately zeroing in on the one name he'd given. Katsuki rolled his eyes.
It's not her.
Then who the hell is it? Because you up and left with her 4 hours ago and you still haven't told me what your date's fucking name is. Katsuki hesitated just for a second. He knew he was going to have to tell her about Kirishima. That was the whole fucking point. But he'd hoped, somehow, that he could avoid inflicting his mother on Kirishima until it was absolutely necessary.
Kirishima Eijirou.
There were 4 seconds of complete silence. Then, if this is some kind of bullshit teenage rebellious phase, I am going to ground you for the rest of your natural-born life. Katsuki wanted to point out that his rebellious phase had basically been from birth to present, and she had never given him shit about it before.
You wanted me to bring a date. He's my fucking date,
he said instead, like he was issuing a challenge. Fucking Christ, his mother sighed, pinching the bridge of her nose. This is some serious commitment to pissing me off, Brad. The thing was, she was right. This whole thing was technically one giant fuck you. But Katsuki hadn't even really been interested in anyone. But he'd figured out through Uraraka nagging him and some serious self-reflection that if there ever was, it was going to be a guy. So this conversation was going to happen at some point, and it might as well be now.
I'm not gay because I want to piss you off.
Shit, kid, she said tiredly, dropping back down into the armchair. I know how being gay works, but the rest of the family... Katsuki barked out a short, disbelieving laugh.
Oh my god, of course. Of fucking course, that's what you're worried about.
He took a deep, steadying breath and resisted the urge to punch something.
I'm either bringing him or I'm not bringing anyone, so pick your fucking poison.
Fine, bring him. But when your grandmother disowns you, you have no one to blame but yourself.
Fucking let her.
A heavy, oppressive silence settled over them, neither one willing to show that the other had gotten to them. His mother was the one to break it. I'm going to bed. You should too. We'll talk to your father about this in the morning. Katsuki didn't respond, just toed off his shoes and stomped past her up the stairs to his room. It took him forever to get ready for bed, so wound up from everything that his hands wouldn't stop shaking. He checked the time on his phone once he was actually in bed. It was nearly 1 and he had 3 missed texts from Kirishima. Shitty hair, O28. Hey, I know your prob's asleep, but Denki wants your playlist. Shitty hair, O28. He says I have to tell you he's pissed about the aux. Shitty hair, O29, but he still wants it. Me, O47. He gets a link when he earns it. Shitty hair, O47. How does he earn it? Me, O48. Wouldn't you like to know? Shitty hair, O50. This is sent from him. Shitty hair, O50. Sent a photo. It was a screenshot of a text conversation with Kaminari where he'd sent a whole screen's worth of sad faces to Kirishima in response to Katsuki's playlist secrecy. Katsuki let out an involuntary snort. Me, O51. Tell him he can ask me about it at school if he's that desperate. I'm going to bed. Shitty hair, O52. Okay, will do. Good night. Katsuki felt a bit calmer after that. Still not good, but his hands weren't shaking and he was no longer wanting to blow anything up, so it was an improvement. He set his phone down on the bedside table to charge and somehow managed to fall asleep. Time passes. The next morning, Katsuki was awoken by someone knocking at the door. He knew it was his dad because his mom would have just barged in. Katsuki, are you awake?
Yeah,
he grumbled, sitting up but not bothering to leave his bed. The door opened and his dad stepped inside. He stayed hovering near the door, wringing his hands awkwardly.
What do you want?
Your mother told me what happened last night. Katsuki had figured as much. His dad wouldn't try and wake him up on the weekend unless he had a reason.
And?
Katsuki snapped. His dad looked somehow even more uncomfortable than before. I just wanted you to know, whatever she may have said, we don't love you any less. Katsuki scoffed. He hated when his dad did this. tried to smooth over what his mom said by making it seem like she hadn't meant it, rather than outright saying he had disagreed with her. He was too tired to call him on it, though.
Yeah, sure, I'm going over to Uraraka's.
All right, his dad said, giving him an uneasy smile. Do you want breakfast? Katsuki shook his head, and his dad left without another word. He got up, got dressed, grabbed his phone, and walked out the front door. His mom wasn't in the house, because she definitely would have stopped him from leaving if she was. As it stood, the walk to Uraraka's was the same as always, and when he climbed through her open window, she looked up from her phone long enough to smile at him and make room on the bed and went right back to what she was doing. It was exactly what he needed. He lay at the foot of her bed in silence for a while until Uraraka got bored of whatever she was doing or got tired of repressing her meddling tendencies, and poked Katsuki's hip with her foot to get his attention. So your mom called me last night and asked who you were out with, she started.
Shit,
the missed calls from Uraraka.
Of fucking course she did.
And I didn't actually have an answer for her because you didn't tell me you were going out, she finished, like he hadn't spoken at all.
I was at karaoke with Kirishima and his friends,
Katsuki told her. What? Uraraka exclaimed. I've been trying to get you to go to karaoke with me for years, asshole.
I didn't want to go, but one of his friends invited me, and it would have been suspicious if I said no.
Uraraka was still pouting, but she seemed to have accepted his answer. I figured she'd be happy you were talking to people that aren't me, I mean. Katsuki sighed.
Me too, but I told her about me and Kirishima.
Uraraka's eyes widened. Wait, told her you're dating told, or told her you're pretending to date told? Katsuki propped himself up on his elbows to scowl at her.
What do you think I am, an idiot? The first one.
She let out a relieved sigh. Well, that's good. Katsuki snorted.
Good is pretty fucking generous.
He gave Uraraka the summarized version of his talk with his mom the previous night, and watched with a kind of perverse satisfaction as her face got redder and her expression got stormier. By the time he finished, she was on her feet, pacing and frustrated. That's just awful. How can she say that? That's just... She kept pacing as she ranted, but it was weirdly comforting having someone share his anger. You know what? Uraraka said after a few minutes, coming to an abrupt stop and pointing sharply at Katsuki. We're going to get ice cream.
I don't have my wallet.
I'm paying for you, Uraraka said. Her jaw was set, like she was daring him to fight her on it. He would, normally, because he didn't like owing people for shit. But Uraraka never offered to pay for things, and if she was, she had a good reason for it. She was still grumbling while she rooted through the closet for a pair of shoes, while she put the shoes on, and while she grabbed her wallet. We're going out the window, she declared, pulling a sweatshirt over her head. Katsuki suddenly wished he'd thought to put one on when he was leaving. It wasn't cold, but it wasn't hot either, and he much preferred being warm to being cold, especially if he was about to eat something frozen.
If you fall again, I'm just going to laugh at you, he said, climbing out onto the tree without waiting for a response. He had a lot more practice with the tree than Uraraka did, since she only had to use the window when she was leaving with him, which didn't happen very often. She made it down without any difficulty, and kicked him hard in the shin as soon as she had both her feet on the ground. It hurt because she was the fucking jujitsu prefectural champion, but he kicked her back instead of acknowledging that. Katsuki could tell that she was still fuming because she was shit at concealing her emotions. Not that he could judge on that front, but he at least looked intimidating. Between her general roundness and the giant pink sweatshirt she was wearing, she looked like a pissy Jigglypuff. He told her as much and she hit him again, then threatened to buy his favorite flavor and eat it in front of him. You hate ginger, he told her, rolling his eyes.
I enjoy pissing you off more than I hate ginger, she retorted. That was probably true, but her threats were empty anyway. They were still sniping back and forth when they got to the nearest ice cream place. There were no other customers and only one employee, which Katsuki figured was to be expected given that it was about 10 a.m. and no one fucking ate ice cream that early. Unfortunately, the sole employee happened to be fucking half and half. He gave Uraraka what might have been a smile if you squinted hard enough and nodded at Katsuki in stony-faced acknowledgement. "Todoroki, did you switch your hours again?" Uraraka asked, going from grumbly to bubbly in a span of 2 seconds.
Eijirou needed someone to cover for him, he replied. "It's just for this week."
"Oh, good. Deku would flip if he had to rearrange your study schedule again." Katsuki hung back and let them chat. Uraraka would get around to ordering pretty quickly, since talking to half and half was like trying to talk to a block of ice. He'd always assumed that's why he and Deku got along. Deku talked enough that it didn't really matter if the other half of the conversation responded or not. Uraraka came back over a few minutes with her ice cream. She handed Katsuki a cone and called out a final goodbye to half and half, and they left the shop. Through some kind of silent mutual agreement, they walked to a nearby park instead of going back to Uraraka's. They walked quietly for a while, absorbed in their respective desserts, but they eventually got to a bench and Uraraka had them sit down while they finished. "Have you told Kirishima about what happened?" Uraraka asked once she'd thrown out her bowl. Katsuki shook his head.
"There's no reason to. I told him when he agreed to this they were going to be dicks about it. He literally signed up to piss her off."
"Yeah, but there's a difference between theoretically knowing they're going to be awful and... I told my parents about us and my mom all but told me I was the family disappointment," Uraraka pointed out.
"I'll tell him I told them,"
Katsuki said, getting up from the bench and walking back the way he'd come. Uraraka caught up quickly and wasn't thrown by his escape attempt at all. "You got him involved, Bakugou. He has to know the situation or you're screwed." Katsuki huffed, frustrated.
"He knows the situation. It's not like they're going to fucking quiz him about their reactions to me coming out."
Uraraka rolled her eyes. "I know you hate sharing personal information, but you literally dragged this guy into your family drama. He deserves to know exactly what he's getting into." They'd made it out of the park by then and were back on the sidewalk beside it. Whatever Katsuki was going to say in response was lost when someone in a passing car threw a cup of something out the window at him. It hit him in the back of the head and splattered cold liquid all over his hair and dripping down his shirt. They yelled something too, but he didn't hear it. Judging by the way Uraraka puffed up, enraged she did, but was still fussing over Katsuki before he could ask about it. "Take off your shirt," she ordered, pulling off her sweatshirt and handing it to him, then picking the cup off the ground and tossing it in a nearby garbage can. Katsuki did as she asked because his shirt was starting to get sticky and it was fucking gross. Uraraka took his ruined shirt from him once he'd put on her sweatshirt. It actually fit him, which meant it was truly fucking gigantic on her.
"What the fuck was in that cup?"
It had been fucking freezing, and it was now working on making his hair a sticky, chemically scented nightmare. "Slushie."
"Fuck,"
Katsuki said with passion. He touched the back of his head and his fingers came away blue.
"Did you hear what they said?"
Uraraka nodded, grim-faced. When she didn't continue, Katsuki raised his eyebrows at her significantly. "I'm not saying it out loud." Well, at least they knew it was on purpose. They went back to Uraraka's and Katsuki got as much of the slushie as he could out of his hair. Uraraka put his shirt in the wash and declared the sweatshirt loaned to him until he got the chance to wash it. He would have fought that normally, but Uraraka had her determined face on, and you didn't fuck with determined face Uraraka. Besides, the sweater was insanely soft and comfy, and he'd had a shitty enough day to merit some comfort material. Katsuki stayed at Uraraka's until his shirt was done going through the wash. He still didn't want to go home, but there was still slushy residue on his back and it was starting to get really fucking uncomfortable. So he reluctantly decided to leave. "You need to tell him about this, at least." Uraraka called down to him once he'd gotten down the tree. Whoever did this could be dangerous. If they were too much of a coward to come after him directly, Katsuki didn't think they were really that much of a threat. But he wasn't stupid enough to ignore 2 incidents in 2 days, however ridiculous they both were.
I'll tell him on Monday.
This was a face-to-face conversation, and the rest of the idiots should probably be in on it too. Uraraka was apparently satisfied with this because she didn't try to keep him from leaving. Time passes. Katsuki spent the rest of the weekend in his room. He left for meals and to wash Uraraka's sweatshirt, but he'd had a string of really shit days, and as far as he was concerned, the world didn't deserve his presence. He'd finished all his homework on Friday, so most of the time was spent on Google Scholar reading about a new disinfectant spray that was in the early testing stages and texting Kirishima. It was a pretty strange combination of activities, but when Katsuki had tried to gross him out by talking about the horrors of gangrene, Kirishima had just called him and asked for a breakdown of the study, which was when Katsuki remembered that, right, this motherfucker wanted to be a paramedic, and trying to get rid of him with gross medical facts wasn't going to work. Kirishima was an attentive listener, and even made an insightful comment at one point, which was when Katsuki abruptly excused himself from the conversation because not hating Kirishima was fine, but actually getting along with him was fucking weird. On Monday, Kirishima came to get him for lunch, like usual, but Katsuki told him they were eating in the classroom again. But on Friday you said—
Friday was a long fucking time ago. Go get the Three Stooges.
Kirishima came back a few minutes later with Ashido, Sero, and Kaminari, who all looked somewhere between confused and wary.
Is this one of the signs of the apocalypse?
Sero asked uncertainly, taking a seat at the desk in front of Katsuki's. Kaminari dropped down next to Sero and whipped out his phone. I'll Google it. There's gotta be a list somewhere. Katsuki growled at them and they backed off. So, is there a reason we're being allowed in your classroom again? Ashido pressed. Katsuki told them what happened on Saturday, though he carefully left out the events of the previous night. When he finished, Kaminari was the first to ask a question. Did you see what kind of car it was?
White,
Katsuki replied.
Maybe a Mazda, I don't fucking know.
Mama, all four of them said simultaneously, with identical looks of resigned frustration.
What the hell is a monoma?
Katsuki demanded. He's in Class B, Kirishima explained. He doesn't like us very much. And he drives an obnoxious white Mazda, Ashido added, taking out her phone and typing something out. I'll see what I can find out, but you guys should probably go talk to Aizawa.
The fuck is he supposed to do? It's not like it happened at school.
Maybe not, but you and Monoma are both students. Plus, it's more proof that there's an actual problem, Kirishima said, standing up and holding out his hand in Katsuki's direction. Katsuki rolled his eyes, but hooked his pinky with Kirishima's and followed him out of the class to the sounds of wolf whistles and jeering from the peanut gallery. Katsuki flipped them off. The entire experience had been a little too familiar for Katsuki's liking. Given that they'd done the same fucking thing 3 days ago, Kirishima even had the same air of quiet sadness that he'd had on Friday, and he wasn't looking at Katsuki. You know, he said, if you wanted to stop, we could. I could do something else to pay you back.
Not a fucking chance,
Katsuki snapped. He couldn't end this even if he wanted to. Not now that his mom knew. Besides,
that's letting them win. Would you back out this easily if you were actually dating someone?
Kirishima shook his head, a bit of a smile starting to creep onto his face.
Damn fucking right, so don't you back out now.
Kirishima's smile was a full-on grin now. You know, you're pretty manly, Bakugou.
That's a weird-ass compliment, shitty hair,
Katsuki said, opening the door to Class C and tugging Kirishima in behind him. Aizawa was there and raised a single disapproving eyebrow at their entrance.
Twice in a week is a lot, even for you.
Kirishima laughed awkwardly and scratched at the back of his head. Yeah, I know. Bakugou? Katsuki told the story again, watching as Aizawa's resting frown deepened to genuine anger.
Physical assault is a serious accusation, Bakugou. You're sure it was purposeful? I'm pretty fucking certain, he said. Uraraka from Class B was with me. She can corroborate. Good to know.
Aizawa sighed, making a note of it in the ever-fucking-thickening folder of bullshit.
I'll have Kirishima let you know if there's any progress.
Katsuki figured that was as much of a dismissal as they were going to get and left the classroom with Kirishima in tow. They'd nearly made it down the hall to Class A when Kirishima said, "Oh, I nearly forgot. Can I give you a ride home after school? I need to talk to you about something." Katsuki frowned at him.
Don't you work?
Nope, day off. We hosted a swim meet and there's a cleanup day today.
All right,
Katsuki said, giving Kirishima a skeptical look.
Main entrance.
That works. Bakugou! Kaminari called as soon as they opened the door, like there was any chance Katsuki could miss him. We need you to approve something.
I don't approve of anything done by you chuckle fucks.
Katsuki grumbled, and Kirishima let out a sound that could probably be best described as a guffaw. I think you'll like this, Ashido said. Katsuki sat back down at his desk, and Sero, who'd been silent through the whole exchange, slid a paper across it. On it was the word bitch in clear, elegant cursive, liberally decorated with pretty flowery vines. I'm thinking directly on the front windshield, Sero suggested. Katsuki grinned at him.
Can you do colors?
Time passes. Okay, Kirishima said as soon as Katsuki climbed into the passenger seat, like he was afraid he was going to lose his momentum if he didn't get the words out immediately. So my parents know about us. Katsuki thought of his own parents' reaction and stiffened up involuntarily.
Shit, are they okay with you dating a guy?
What? Kirishima asked, surprised. Oh, yeah, they're fine with it. He laughed. I mean, it would be pretty hypocritical if they weren't, since they're, lesbians. Katsuki punched him in the shoulder, causing Kirishima to swerve slightly. Hey! He exclaimed. No assaulting the driver!
Why were you all fucking secretive if they were fine with it?
Katsuki demanded. You didn't let me finish. They're, aggressively okay with me dating you. But they want to meet you. Katsuki's brain stuttered to a halt.
Pull the car over.
Dude, we're in the middle of a fucking residential street.
Pull the fucking car over.
Kirishima pulled the car over. So, Kirishima said nervously, I take it I should tell them you can't make it?
I haven't decided.
Katsuki replied.
What would meeting them mean?
Well, they invited you for dinner on Friday at my house. You'd be meeting them and my little sister. Katsuki sighed and flopped back against his seat, burying his face in his hands.
How much are they gonna annoy you if you say no?
Kirishima looked confused. They won't. They're just exciting I'm dating someone, and they want to get to know you. Katsuki mulled it over for a few seconds more.
How's their cooking?
Pretty decent?
I'll do it.
Wait, seriously? Kirishima said incredulously.
Do I sound like I'm kidding, shark face?
Kirishima still didn't seem convinced. No?
Fucking right, let's go.
Kirishima started the car, though he still looked confused. That was fine. Katsuki had no intention of explaining that he'd prefer spending an evening with his fake boyfriend's family than his own parents. It got him out of the house and away from his mom for a night, and the promise of food was more than Uraraka's house had to offer. See you tomorrow? Kirishima said when they pulled up in front of Katsuki's house.
Yeah, we'll eat in my class again.
No one would be stupid enough to try and fuck with them while they were in a classroom. And it meant that they wouldn't have to deal with Aizawa and his impressive resting bitch face for at least another day. Okay, Kirishima replied, still sounding a bit dazed. Bye, Bakugou. Katsuki waved him off and headed towards his house, secretly relishing in the fact that his mom was glaring at the car from the living room window. All right, friends, thank you so much for joining me for this next chapter. At one point, I know there was a dog barking. I am just going to say, I hope that I was able to edit that out and you guys don't hear it, and that this comment right here means nothing to you guys because you can't hear it. But yes, I really hope that you enjoyed this chapter, and I really hope that you'll be back to join me for the next one. See you next time.